Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so that little TV screen with the plus sign,
Right.
right there. Right. Where's my finger? Right there.
Okay, hold on. Okay, looks like we're on.
Ah, yay!
Okay. Looks like we're actually on. Forgive me,
Okay.
folks. This is my first time trying this. Sorry about that. Little technical difficulties here. And to think I was going to call this a Combat Information Center, it wouldn't have been a very good one.
It's one of the early ones.
It's the early one. That's right. That's right. Yeah, on a wooden ship, I guess. All right. Of course, for those of you who are coming over from the USS Kidd, thank you for joining me. And so I want to thank Tim for coming on and doing this with us. Of course, as I said before, if you are following the USS Kidd, this guy needs no introduction. He's a very familiar face, and of course, that's Tim NesSmith. And I'm Sam, the History Man, and my channel is Fletcher Destroyer Ships. And of course, we're coming up on a Memorial Day, so I can't think of any better way to start that weekend off than talking about a Fletcher class destroyer. So anyway, as I was saying before, I think I had asked you, Tim. So how does one get into being a ship superintendent? Did you plan for that, or did it just circumstances just came about that it happened?
It's pure dumb luck. And we thought we were live, but we weren't. But I was saying that I don't think any single one of us in the historic fleet that has this position at their respective ships have the same origin story. We all, like, there's no school that you go to learn how to be a ship superintendent. Even folks that were in the Navy or the Coast Guard, they didn't take care of the whole ship. They took care of their specific section of the ship. And so, they have a learning curve as well. Merchant Marine, same thing. So, yeah, I'm from the central part of Louisiana, Alexandria, Louisiana, was where I was born, grew up outside of there, about 30 miles or so. And out in the woods, all of my experience with maintenance of any sort was with farm equipment.
Right.
Went to LSU for
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Well,
yeah.
let me get this correctly. Go Tigers.
Yeah.
Coach O. But yeah, I went to be a social studies education teacher, which I studied the anthropology, sociology, a little bit of psychology, weirdly enough, geography, world history.
I may need some help with that later.
Yeah, well-rounded for it. They don't even do that anymore. That degree is long gone. You study education and then you specialize in history or geography or something like that. But I got out and had about $200-300 to my name. Needed a job and was bouncing around doing some odd jobs. And a friend of mine from high school who had came down to LSU, he was a couple years behind me in school. He called me up and he said, "Hey, I got this job at this museum downtown." I'm like, "Yeah, it's all you ever talked about." And he's like, "Yeah." He said, they had gotten rid of all their tour guides back in September. There was a problem, so they fired them all, and they hired a few back to get through the season. And the season's over, and a lot of them are seniors, so they've graduated. They're leaving, so they need help. And you've got 2 more certification tests before you can start teaching. This was right up your alley, man. This is like a classroom. You just come in and teach the tour. he said, you should come down and apply. So I did, and I got the job and gave tours and did overnight camping with the scouts and school groups. And round about 6-8 months into it, our administrative assistant kind of got a little bit on the ill side, and the doctors looked at her and they said, okay, so we can fix you up, but this is going to happen again because it's caused by stress. You need to retire and go home and play with the grandbabies. And so the boss asked her, said, they were friends from high school, said, who would you recommend to replace you if you had a choice? And she said, Tim, because Tim knows computers, and you have 2 computers right now, and in 5 years, they're going to be running the place. And Tim actually knows how to build the things. So you should hire him as your administrative assistant. So that's how I got my foot in the door. And you fast forward 14 years later, and our ship superintendent had, our third one had retired. And I had kind of worked just about every position there in some way, shape, or form for some limited amount of time, except for the director's job and the ship superintendent job. And so he was like, the ship better than anybody else. Go out to the ship and take care of it. Make sure it doesn't sink. So here I am.
Yeah, well, that's quite a directive.
And under my watch, we got leaks. So go figure.
That sounds like something that will happen to me.
Yeah.
Now, of course, for those who may not be familiar, I'm pretty sure everybody on here is familiar, though. But let's just talk about it. Of course, as we know, the ship is right now in dry dock, yes. And so give us a status on how that is going, and how much longer you think that. Of course, I know it'll be a lot. Even if they finish it tomorrow, it will be some time before it comes back to Baton Rouge because of the river levels with the Mississippi and all that. So tell us a little bit about that and how that's going.
Well, pretty much most of the work for our original contract is done. The big thing they're doing a little odds and ends, just, fine detail work, wrapping stuff up. But all the major hull repairs are done. So at this point, they have painted the superstructure, the bulkheads and everything, and the equipment with the new Measure 32 10D camouflage. Okay. They are starting, excuse me, I was sick about a week and a half ago, so it's still lingering. They're starting to, they've cleaned off, my last post on Facebook was talking about they've cleaned off the decks, got all the equipment off that they've been using, everything, all the hoses, the lines, cables, etc., off of the decks for the flying bridge, the bridge level, the O1 level, main deck. And when I was down there 2 weeks ago, they were pressure washing, getting everything cleaned off. Not pressure washing hard enough to pull up that zinc coating that you see here on the hull, but just enough to knock dust off, that sort of thing. And they were getting ready to start painting the new camo pattern on the horizontals on the decks. And I got a picture earlier this week of the flying bridge level. And in addition to painting the decks, they are also going to take and lay non-skid. So we've had non-skid in strips before. We've had non-skid, not true non-skid, but we've, put non-skid particles, for lack of a better word, into the paint and painted it in. And then we've had sand. Way back in the day, we'd mix sand in it to give you some non-skid. This is going to be actual non-skid like you see on a U.S. Navy, U.S. Coast Guard ship. And they had non-skid all across the flying bridge, and they were painting the painting on top of that to get the pattern fixed up there. So they're working their way from top down, which is the way you're supposed to paint.
Right.
Getting the non-skid, painting, then moving down, non-skid, painting. So that's what's going on right now. So when I go down next week, I'm guessing they'll probably be at the very least starting on the 01 level and working their way down. The hull itself is going to be the very last thing they touch.
Right.
As far as the schedule, the earliest we could leave the yard is July. But we're doing some fundraising because there's a few more things that could be done if we have the money. And it can only be done in a shipyard. So if we can raise the money, we don't want to kick any cans down the road to the next generation of shipkeepers.
Right. Because who knows when you'll be able to do this again.
Right. We're looking at this as a once in a generation endeavor, because there's a lot of ships that struggle to get this done even the first time. So we're trying to make sure we do it as everything we can possibly do while we have the opportunity, because the opportunity may not come along for a while again.
Right.
So yeah, we should know by the end of June whether those fundraising efforts have borne fruit. If they do, then we will negotiate a new contract, add those items that we want to do into it, and then that, by the shipyard's estimates, time-wise, would put us leaving the shipyard in November. And we will have done everything that we could possibly do that can't be done here in Baton Rouge.
Yeah. Well, let's say if you were to leave in November, and I'm not familiar with the river levels on the Mississippi, but let's say you left in November. At what point would the Mississippi allow you to bring it back?
In recent years, the Mississippi is more of a wild card than it used to be.
Yeah.
But odds are it would be probably April or May before we would be able to slide her back into the cradle.
Right.
But every once in a while, you get that wild card. In 2019, we had a Spanish galleon, not Spanish galleon, but a Spanish replica of the Santa Maria coming up. And starting around January, the Mississippi came up really high and really peaked around February. But they had trouble getting up the river because their engines couldn't handle the current. And it stayed up from February all the way through September, which was, I'd never seen that before. So, it just depends on what the winter is going to be like up north between the Appalachians and the Rockies and the Great Lakes. Because everything from that region comes down past Baton Rouge. Right.
So is that something where you would have any kind of notice where you could go, okay, we've got a 4 or 5 day window, maybe we can go now, or
yeah, and that's basically how we got out. We were watching the river levels, what's coming down from. If you watch Cairo, Illinois, where the Ohio dumps into the Mississippi, and you watch around St. Louis area where the Missouri comes in, you watch those river levels up there, and if you've got a swell there, then you're going to have a swell reaching us probably about 5 to 7 days later. And the swell won't be nearly as high as it is up there because the river's getting wider and deeper as you get further south, but you still get that swell no matter what. So we just watch what's upriver, and then we watch the projections for what it's going to be with us, and adapt accordingly.
Okay, cool. Now, while I got this picture up here, of course, this is what I would call the basic paint scheme. But I understand you guys are going to be changing that up a little bit. You're going to be doing the dazzle, or how's that going to look? How's it going to look when she comes back?
Measure 3210D, which is one of the dazzle camouflages from World War II. And for the purists out there who see this photograph, they'll see definitely what's wrong with this camouflage scheme here. It's measure 22, except for the smokestack caps, which one of our directors he had a wild hair, and he liked the way the black caps looked on the Cold War stuff. And we're not representing Cold War, we're representing World War II. But he dug in hard and made us paint the stack caps black. So every time I see one of these photos from that period, I just cringe, because all the time I would get sailors who knew better, or model builders who knew better, or ship enthusiasts who knew better. And
well, that would be the one I would pick. So
yeah, and they're like, your stack caps aren't correct. Yep. So why do y'all have it painted that way? The boss thought it looked cool. Well, that y'all aren't supposed to be representing that. We understand this, but what? Why would he do that? He thought it looked cool, but cool is not what you're representing. You're supposed to be accurate. And it's like, you got a problem, go in the building, go all the way down to the south end of the building, knock on his door. And and he got so angry with us after a while, because so many people were knocking on his door. It's like, you tell us when we have a problem with visitors that we can direct them to you. They have a problem with the paint scheme, you get visits. There's only one way to correct this. And so he started sitting with his door closed in his office for a while.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue with an old sailor, right? Because I imagine a lot of those were the guys that were noticing. Yeah.
But our 3210D, she wore it from December of 43, late December, like Christmas week, somewhere in there, of 43, through December, or the first week or so of January of 40, December of 44, or the first week of January 45, when she was in the shipyard. So our current director wanted to show something new to Baton Rouge. He felt that was necessary to get public coming back to the museum in greater numbers, and he thought that was the key. So we all sat down and hashed it out, and we basically agreed to an education cycle. We've been educating Measure 22 in how it works, why it works, for 42 years. So we're going to do 5 years in Measure 3210D, and talk about how dazzle doesn't really hide the ship. Dazzle just confuses the gunnery. Stands out like a sore thumb on the ocean, but it confuses the gunnery and the torpedomen and the submarines. And then at the end of that 5 years, we'll push back to 1943, and we will have the Measure 21, the all blue, like Battleship Texas is wearing right now. And after that 5 years, then we go back to Measure 22, and she'll be back in her camouflage will match her 1945 physical configuration, and then I retire and I leave it in the hands of the next guy to fight that fight. Or girl. It may be the girl. It may be Anna.
Well, the guns and y'all
as well.
Y'all forgive me if I missed something in the comments. I'm new to this, so
Anna, the guns.
Anna said
the guns themselves will the 5-inch guns have the camo. The 40 millimeters will have basically a light gray. They're not going to have the stripes on it like the 5-inch guns do. The 5-inch guns will be part of that pattern. But the 40s will have just that light gray. That's part of the camo color. And then, of course, the flat parts, the decks, I believe, if I remember correctly, will have the same color that's on the decks surrounding the guns. The 20s will just be gunmetal color, and the shields and the stands that they sit on will have the paint like the 40s that matches what's around them, but they won't have any zigzags on them. Hope that answers the question. How many gallons of paint does it take? I can't answer that, because we've never painted the ship all at once, except when they first got her to town. So, and I don't have any record of how much back in 1982, 83, when they painted the entire ship all at once. In 98, we blasted and painted the hull, and that was from main deck down. I don't even know how many gallons that was, but even then, we didn't paint the whole ship all at once.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Now you were talking about painting the guns. Now, I think I saw one of your videos. You're actually the guys over at the Texas are helping out with some of your guns. Now, are they of course stripping all the paint off and everything?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and
They're
the
breaking
reason
it
I
down
asked
to
that is
bare
because,
bones.
yeah, the reason I asked that is I went to a museum ship uh, a few months ago. It's a great ship, but I'm not going to call the name out because I don't want to sound like I'm saying anything derogatory, because I'm really not. I
Mhm.
mean, the ships have to be painted, but the guns have been painted and painted and painted and painted so many times, that it was just the paint was on there so thick, and um, I'm guessing I'm saying by stripping everything down, you're going to have a time period where everything just looks pristine. I guess is
Yes.
what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we try to do on KIDD, something that Tim Rizzuto, our first ship superintendent, he's up at the Slater now as their executive director, that he started was we try not to just paint over and over and over. We will scrape it down, we'll sand it down to rough it up a little bit, and then apply paint. So you may go to some places and you'll see a big thick layer of paint. Like I went to a ship years and years and years ago. KIDD was my very first ship, so I'm kind of spoiled. But the second ship that I went to, I leaned on a bulk. I just put my hand up and leaned on the bulkhead while I waited on some friends, and my hand sank into the paint. It wasn't wet; it was 100% dry, but there were so many layers that the weight of my body on that one spot pressed my palm print into the paint.
Yeah.
So yeah, we try not to get that thick. We try to sand it down and scrape it. During COVID, we didn't have a whole lot of. Thank you, Silver Bricks. Appreciate you. Um, we had no, like, our veteran volunteer crew faded away because they're of the age that's more susceptible to the virus, right? So everybody's
Right.
gone home, and we had some Church of Latter-day Saints missionaries that they couldn't go house to house. They couldn't have meetings with people to proselytize or anything, but they like to volunteer in their community. And uh, over the course of like 2 years, almost 3 years, we had a couple of hundred probably missionaries come, not all at once, but just rotating through
Right.
as their mission would pull them and send them to a different location and everything. But they came through, and we had them cleaning out old, rooms that had been junked up, just stuff tossed in them and straightening them up and cleaning and everything. And we had them scraping and painting and sanding. Well, not painting, scraping and sanding quite a bit, because that's 99% of the job, right?
Right.
And so they're like, Mr. Tim, we can paint. And I'm like, I know you can paint, but with your manpower and the amount of time you spend with us, y'all make a bigger dent than Nathan Bergeron or I can by ourselves or together. Y'all make a huge dent, and we can go ahead and paint behind you and be done. And so it became a great cycle and was very helpful. Somebody asked, is the paint historically accurate or a modern equivalent that protects better? It's going to be an epoxy paint that goes on. So they didn't have that in World War II that I'm aware of. And of course, the big difference between modern paint and the paint back then is there's no lead in this paint. So that's extremely important environmentally now.
Right.
Thank you, Snow Liavali.
Awesome. Awesome. So,
And
so
Silver Brick, thank you. I knew you guys hadn't forgotten us. I was just waiting to hear back from you. So I appreciate that follow up. Silver
oh
Brick
yeah.
works for a fabrication company that came down, and they're looking at seeing if they can fabricate the 40 millimeter ready ammo racks around the interior of our gun tubs, which is one of the small details that we need to bring back eventually.
Yeah. Now I understand. Now you were talking about Mr. Bergeron. Did you say?
Nathan
Yeah.
Bergeron.
Yeah. Now, I understand he's your go-to guy for pretty much anything the ship needs, right? Is if it's the same guy I'm thinking about.
He is if he hears about this, he's just gonna like melt because he hates attention. But he is, an artist. And I'm not blowing smoke on any of this. A lot of times I'll say this and people are like, oh, you're buttering him up. I'm not buttering him up. This guy is, if it wasn't for Nathan Bergeron, he started in the 80s and finished school and then left, did his career, and kind of he's in semi-retirement now. He's done with his career, and he said, I've done my career. It wasn't necessarily fun. It was a job, but I wanted to do something fun again before I get to the age where I can't do anything fun. And he said the kid was always fun. So, in 2016, he showed up, and we had an acting director at that point, Mr. Mark Pellis, fabulous guy, love him to death, stayed in touch with him after he left. Now he's across the street at an art museum from us. But Mark called me. He said, you need to come down here real quick. And I got down to the lobby, and he said, I want to introduce you. He's off to the side. I see Nathan. I've never met Nathan at this point. I've only heard about him, read about him, seen pictures of him when he was like 20 something. And he said, see that guy over in the chair there? I said, yeah. He said, that's Nathan Bergeron. He used to work here. I'm like, the Nathan Bergeron? Holy crap. And I just left him and just raced over and fanboyed over him and everything. And hello, Benjo Fernandez. That's one of our volunteers right there. Longtime friend from college. And
Snow Leovali says we got their name right. So
yeah. Nathan is a master fabricator. In his original tenure here in the 80s and first couple of years of the 90s, with Tim Rizzuto, stuff that Rizzuto couldn't go out into the reserve fleet and find if he had pictures and if he had plans. Nathan would fabricate it. And we're going to make a video actually for our channel once we get our social media team rebuilt. We're going to make a video walking around the ship talking about every single thing that Nathan has fabricated, and folks are going to be amazed. You can see a little bit of it in a video in our behind the scenes, a tour of a museum ship. We did it for World of Warships. But I didn't even broach half the stuff that he's fabricated. He's phenomenal, and not just on welding. I mean, he goes to the nth degree he's cleaning up the stuff that's in the warehouse right now, getting it rotating and elevating. And if I would let him, he'd probably get the 20 millimeters to firing. But I'm already on a watch list, so I don't need that headache.
Well, let me know if he does that. I want to see it. So. Yeah, he fabricated one of the aft depth charge racks, didn't he?
One of the tracks on the fantail, the portside track, he fabricated based off of everything that he had one to work with, which was on the starboard side. That is original build to the ship. And then all the K-gun racks, all of those were gone. So with pictures and plans, he fabricated those, the life raft racks, the searchlight platform, the ECM mast. The ECM mast was all by himself. He erected it with pulleys and blocks and tackle and everything all by himself, and then welded it in place. Gun tubs, the 40 millimeter gun tubs, he brought those back. I could go on and on. I'm just scratching the surface right there. He's fabulous.
Oh yeah. That's amazing. That's talent right there, man. All right.
Jeff, our social media team is going to be a mixture of volunteer and staff. We're looking to hire somebody for editing, and then Miss Molly, who you guys, if you've been watching us, know, she will pop in every now and then, maybe, hopefully, cross our fingers, and take and help us out. And also Mr. Omar, who was working with us, he will pop in and help us, here and there, doing fundraisers and stuff like that. So it's going to be a mixture.
Cool. Real quick. What?
Somebody's asking, let him fire him.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. The Louisiana State Police might be showing up at the museum or something.
State Police, FBI, pick an agency.
Parish,
Coast
Parish.
Guard,
You guys have like what is it?
ATF.
Parish.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agent Shields. Hi, Agent Shields. Okay. Another guy I want to talk about real quick. Of course, real quick, Park Stevenson.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of people know him as the guy who was one of the guys who discovered the Johnston. And of course, he's working with you guys now. Tell us how what's it like working with Parks?
It's an adventure.
Lie if you have to save your
Lie
job.
if I have to. It's an
to save your job.
To say the least. I met Parks because of the Johnston, because he and Victor Vescovo decided they were going to dive it, and they wanted to look at a wartime Fletcher and actually go aboard one. And out of the three of us that are still around in the States, Kidd's the only one that's wartime. That's World War II. The other two are set up for the 50s or early 60s.
Right.
So, or late 50s, maybe both of them, I think. But yeah, he and Victor came over right as in the height of the pandemic in May of 2020 and walked around the ship with us and everything. And then Park stayed in touch and got a hold of footage from the Petrel, from with the group that discovered the debris trail on top of above the Philippine Trench. And he's emailing me. He's like, "What do you think this could be? What do you think that could be?" And I'm walking around the ship with the pictures, and I'm like, "I think this is this." And he's like, "Okay." And,
right.
And so they got to the point to where they felt they were familiar with it and everything. And then eventually they made their dive, and he reached out and he's like, "Okay, so I need help with the after action report." And so he would email back and forth with me. And at that point, it wasn't like top secret anymore. So I was able to pull Tim Rizzuto and Ed Zukowski into the conversation and introduce them. And they had a nice little 4 or 5 different people in the conversation, in the email chain of, talking about how what they found on the wreck could be this, and how that might have happened and everything. And then he submitted the wreck report. And then they went out, I forget the year now, but they went out and found the Samuel B. Roberts. And not long
you just answered Anna. You just answered Anna Thomas's question. She says, "Was Parks with Victor when he found the Sammy B?"
He was on the expedition, but he did not dive on the Sammy B. Victor dove and others with Victor, but he did not dive on the Sammy B. But Parks was the one that came up with the dive plan, the coordinates, figuring out from the historical records where they should dive for both expeditions. And he was with them. He was with Victor when he dove on Johnston, at least once, maybe twice. I forget the number. But yeah, after the Sammy B, we had our director Roseanne Geip departed for another opportunity, and Parks applied for the job. Parks kind of was recruited to apply for the job. Some of the folks were really like, "You need to apply for this," and so he applied and he got it. And so
awesome.
He's been here since October 2022.
He seems to be a good fit, at least from my perspective.
He's a good guy. Oh, yeah. And folks at the KIDD kind of laugh when I say it, but Homeland Security, yes, Homeland Security would be all over me, Hank. But folks kind of laugh at me, and Hank will be able to say this, that I've always said God loves the KIDD, because when we lose somebody like a Nathan, or we lose a Roseanne, or somebody like that, somebody with a really good and necessary skill set, inevitably somebody shows up that it turns out is after down the road, in hindsight, we realize that was the perfect person for that particular challenge during that period. And Parks was the right guy for helping get us to dry dock, because he has experience with shipwrecks, and he has experience with the film industry and everything. And so he was able to take and communicate properly to the powers that be in the fundraising efforts and go to the legislature and testify and say, this is what I've observed here. This is what's happening to KIDD here. And this is what's going to happen if we don't fix it, and show the economic impact of museums in the area of Louisiana and around the states. Take that data that was already existing and then convey it in the way that people could understand it and go, yes, we will help you. It is a good investment. So yeah, his skill set was definitely needed for dry docking.
Yeah. And I like, and as you mentioned earlier, you're in the World War II configuration, and nothing against the other two Fletchers. I mean, they're great museums, but it's good that we have at least one that is set up like it was during the World War II period. So we at least have that reference, you know.
Yeah. And that was a fluke, honestly, because KIDD just had stuff taken away from her. She never got modified for the bigger, heavier Cold War weaponry.
Right.
Sullivan's and Cass Young and Velos, you know, conceivably with an open pocketbook, you know, Fort Knox, you could rip the ships apart and rebuild the superstructures back to go to World War II. But, you know, is it financially feasible? No, you know, but
Right.
It works out because KIDD represents World War II and the other two represent, you know, the Cold War sailors, and the Cold War sailors need to have representation too. So it works out. Everybody has their own spot that they can interpret, and everybody gets represented.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's talk about the ship history a little bit. Actually, I want to start off talking about some of the guys on the ship. Of course, everybody knows about the kamikaze attack, and you know, we'll get to that. But let's talk about a couple of individuals here. Okay, Mr. Roby. So,
Lieutenant Commander Alan B. Roby Sr., later Rear Admiral. He actually has two ships in the historic fleet. He's got KIDD and he's got the Salem up in Quincy.
Okay. Okay, so he was first commander, is that correct? He was the first commander
CO.
in the war.
And the crew absolutely adored him. He was one of those commanders that was just charismatic and could do no wrong. I got to meet him one time, and all these old sailors, when they get together for reunions, they're sailors. They're like frat boys almost, you know, you old so and so, and they're telling bawdy stories, and they're loud, and you know, some of their wives are obnoxious, you know. And I went and picked up Admiral Roby from the airport in New Orleans. I was a nobody. I was like, when was it? It was 96. So it was like my second year there. I just happened to be the low enough on the totem pole to where nobody else wanted to do it. And they're like, you go down and we'll pay your gas. Go get Admiral Roby. Okay. And
you got to be chauffeur for the day.
He was just so interested in me. Why would he be interested in me, right? But he wanted to know about Louisiana and what he was seeing on the road, and you know, where I come from, what my people are like, you know, my background. And then we walked into the hotel. I'm carrying his bags, and he's in front of me, and all these sailors are walking around and being loud and obnoxious and everything. And somebody spotted him, and you started seeing word, you know, somebody's tapping, hey, look over there. And they all start coming toward him. And like your KIDD hat, by the way, I like your hat. The ball caps come off, and they're in their hands, and they're almost bowing a little bit. Their aura is, instead of big and loud and boisterous, now they're very quiet. They're very respectful, and they come up and they're like, Admiral, thank you so much for joining us, sir. It is such an honor that you would come and join us again. He's like, you're my boys. Of course I'm going to come. And they're just like, we. You know, it was almost like the Wayne and Garth stuff from SNL back in the 90s of we're not worthy. They worship that guy. They worship.
Yeah, I remember
they
that.
Swore up and down. The guys that were on in the kamikaze attack swore up and down, if Roby had been on board, we would have never been hit. And
okay.
looking at the timetable and the setup and what happened, they did the math. They had 10 seconds to react. Not even Roby could have saved them from that, but that they loved him that much that they declared that they believed that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know he did some pretty impressive work.
Absolutely.
Up until I think it was, what was it, August of 44?
August
When
44, they traded out.
Yeah, when they traded out. Based on what I've read, he was still quite the seaman. So, all right, and that brings us to Harry Grimshaw Moore, and of course, he was the commander during the kamikaze attack.
He was, and just like Roby, ironically, he's got 2 ships in the museum fleet. Kidd, he was the second CO of Kidd, and he got wounded pretty badly in the kamikaze attack. A lot of shrapnel from his head, down his neck, across his shoulders, down his back, buttocks, legs. So it incapacitated him. He had to be relieved of command and the XO take over. And the XO wasn't much better. And after a while, the XO had to be relieved. But he went to, I may be wrong in saying he went to Bethesda, but he was over on the East Coast in a hospital over there. And after he got out and recuperated and everything, the Navy picked him up and sent him to, I don't remember the shipyard, but sent him to take command of the USS Joseph P. Kennedy, which is a Gearing class museum ship in Fall River, Massachusetts, at Battleship Cove. And you would have seen her in the movie 13 Days with Kevin Costner. So,
okay. All right. Well, speaking of guys that were in movies, and I saved this guy for last because I know. All right. Okay. I saved this guy for last because I know you've got some stories about this guy, Mr. Garrett Lynch.
Garrett Lynch is a superstar, and I miss him dearly. He passed away maybe about 2-3 years ago. Benjo in the chat knew him, as did Hank Happy in the 1800s. Garrett enlisted in World War II right after Pearl Harbor. One of his first duty stations after getting out of boot camp, they sent him to Pearl Harbor, and he was in the salvage teams for Battleship Row and all the other ships. The Oglala was across the harbor from Battleship Row. He salvaged off of that, helped raise her. 3 of the battleships, Arizona was one. I want to say the other 2 were Tennessee and maybe California. He went aboard with other guys. They had these big pumps running, and they would pump the ships out and to where they could get inside and remove the ammunition, lift the ammunition out. And he told us, the Arizona wanted to float. He said they would pump her. We were going in the back end of it because the front end was just shattered. Right. And said the back end wanted to float and would float. They would start the pumps up, and said the ship would tilt upward. The fantail would come up, and they would be wading around in ankle or knee deep water, and said their sole job was to pull the ammo out. But they've got masks on, like just pieces of cloth tied around their faces and everything. They would soak it in something, turpentine or something, just to kill the stench in there. And said every once in a while a body would float by, and they'd have to get a particular group of guys to come in, and they'd slide canvas underneath the body and then kind of wrap it and lift it out and everything. He said they were instructed, do not bother the bodies, let these guys do it. Right. So he helped with the salvage, and then he went to the destroyer O'Brien. It was a Sims class, one of the old gold platers built between 1930 and 1940. And kind of low on the totem pole still, but he ended up down in the magazine, forward ammo magazine for his battle station. And O'Brien was with one of the carriers, and I cannot remember. Hank, shout out if you remember which carrier it was. But at one of the early battles in the South Pacific in 42, early 42. O'Brien took a torpedo meant for a carrier right behind it, and it broke her back, but it hit in the bow area, and it hit one compartment forward of his ammo magazine. He should have died, but it didn't breach that compartmentalization between where it hit and the magazine. He would stand in the chief's mess of the Kidd, and it ripped the bow off of O'Brien. And he would show us, he said, you look through this door from handling room number 51 into the chief's mess. You see that refrigerator right there? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, imagine that just scrunched like he stepped on a Coke can, and it's just crunched upward from the force of the explosion below it and jammed into the overhead of the steel deck above it. And that the bow ripped away from that piece of deck, and that refrigerator was just stuck, crunched up into the thing. And I'm like, you survived that? And he's like, I got a dislocated shoulder, you know. And so they're cruising around for a month looking for a dry dock with a broken keel and a missing bow. And after about a month, said in the middle of the night, you heard just this horrendous start creaking, ripping, and said the ship broke in half. They went in the water, and thank you, USS Wasp. They took a fish that meant for wasp, and they went in the water. He's got a dislocated shoulder. He's wearing his kapok, and one of these oilers came up, or cargo ships, troop transport, one of those. And they had the nets laying right alongside the hull, which is kind of hard to get grip on and keep your boots in when you're trying to climb it. And he's got a bad wing, and so he couldn't climb the cargo net, and he's just drifting down the length of the ship. And he said she was riding high, and you see, you know, the top end of the propeller just slowly turning. And he's like, I'm gonna die. And there was a Jacob's ladder hanging down near the stern before he got to the props, and he grabbed it and just ran his hand through it and just, you know, held on for dear life. And he said he was praying, dear Lord, don't let me die. And said he sat there in the water holding onto that ladder forever. And some guy leaned over at some point and saw him, and it's like, hey, we got a guy back here, come here, hey dude, climb up. And he's like, I can't, I'm wounded. Yeah. And so some guy climbed down, and they tied a rope around him and fished him out. He eventually ended up on the Fulham as a gun captain in one of the 5-inch guns, and made it through the war, no more injuries. And he stayed in the reserves and eventually made chief bosun before getting out. And he started volunteering with the Kidd the minute she got to Baton Rouge. And he volunteered for 35 years straight. With one small break of a few months, his wife got ill and passed. And so he was busy taking care of her for a few months. Still staying in touch with us, though. And as soon as he got everything in order after she passed, he was right back to it. And he passed away at age 97. And this is one of the weirdest and yet most awesome things in the world. He died. When he died, he got up, got dressed, went to breakfast, and he's gone. And when he died on the day, 79 years to the date that he should have died in that magazine. It's amazing.
That's something, man.
It's just like he had an expiration date. God was like, I'm not ready for you yet, but 79 years from now, bam, he goes.
Yeah.
So, fabulous. Fabulous person.
Oh yeah, even still sounds as if he had a full life, you know.
He did.
What an amazing story.
People you could ever run into and work with.
Yeah, I never met him, but I mean, I guess through all the clips I've seen on YouTube, of course, you know, he was on a couple of programs talking about destroyers, you know, and as soon as as I told you before, he's the only reason I watched the movie Battleship, because I heard he was in it, you know.
He didn't want to be in that. Those three guys
yeah,
did not want to be in the movie, and they said, "You can be in the movie," and they're like, "Nah," and it's like, "Why not?" And they're like, "We don't want to learn lines," and he's like, "Well, okay, you don't have to learn lines." They're like, "Okay, we'll be in your movie," and then the assistant director tricked him. He's like, "I need you guys to sign this." They're in their skivvies in the costume trailer, and getting dressed by the costuming ladies, and somebody walked in and just stuck a clipboard in front of me. "We need you to sign this." "What's this?" "This is just movie stuff. Don't worry about it." "Okay," signed it. And this shows you should always read what you're signing.
yeah,
What they signed was joining the Screen Actors Guild. And at that point, he could make them have lines. So he rewrote the entire scene so that they had some lines because he really wanted them invested in the scene.
yeah,
And they were mad about it initially, and then they started getting residual checks, like $1.50 or something every time it played on TNT or TBS.
yeah.
And and they would come in on Thursday mornings like, "I saw it. I saw the movie playing on TBS on Friday night." "Yeah, I saw that too. We should be getting a check in about 2 weeks." "Yeah, I got a check for $1.08 the other day." "Well, mine was $1.06." Oh, they had fun with it. They loved it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was the one who said, I believe it was, "You ready to come play with the big boys?" or something
Yep,
like that. I think that was
that's
his
him.
line.
He had no
Yeah,
idea who Rihanna was when he met her that morning.
yeah. Oh wow, that's fun, man.
By the end
That's
of the
fun.
evening, at the end of filming, she was smooching his cheek as part of the celebration. Okay, fire, boom, shake, turbulence, and celebration.
Yeah.
Yay! And she'd give him a big kiss on his cheek and everything. He was like, he was goofy at the end. They had fun. I
That's
think they
funny.
actually exchanged emails.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's cool. All right. Of course, you can't talk about the kid without talking about what happened in April of 45. I got a clip here. I actually want to play, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's real short clip. This is Charles Hitt, and of course he's passed away now. But this is just he's telling about kind of his viewpoint, what happened, and the aftermath. And so I'm gonna play this, and then we'll talk about it. So.
Okay.
I guess we were scared out there, but you didn't have time to get scared. You reacted spontaneously, and when general quarters sounded, you went to your battle station. Right. You stayed there.
I just did your job.
Yeah. When the ship got hit, and we had fuel oil and salt water waist deep in the mess hall, we had a bucket brigade started, bucking it out of there. They finally got some billy pumps off of an oil tanker and hooked it up. Well, and we threw all ammunition over the side up forward and moved all the, I call them deck apes, moved all the deck force from up forward back aft to lessen the weight of the ship on the bow. Right. And we made it to Ulythia and the Carolina Islands. Okay. And we're taken care of by the USS Hamel, AD-20. It was a big auxiliary destroyer, a big repair ship. And what they did, they put temporary plates over the holes in the side of the ship. Okay. And they made us paint that doggone ship from the stern to the bow. They worked our butts off to take our mind off everything, Right. Well, our skipper, he got wounded.
During the hit?
Yeah. And I think we used to call him Old Man Moore. I think he was from Georgia. And then we finally wound up with the gunnery officer running the doggone ship. Well, we finally left Ulythia, and we could motor pretty good with the aft engine room and the aft fire room, and went to Pearl Harbor. And while at Pearl, they gave every ship that had been hit a beer party on the beach. Well, I elected not to go. I stayed aboard ship to get my mail, and I had a letter from Mom, which is a good thing because they had that old 3-2 beer, and they were bringing them back and laying them in the sack, and they were all hung over and everything else. So I was glad I didn't go. Right. And then we went from there to Hunters Point, San Francisco. We pulled in there, and the yard workman says, "Where did the ship get hit?" He says, "You go over and look down the number one fire room, you'll see." And they said, "But damn, this is the cleanest ship to come in here to be hit as bad as it is." I said, "Well, they made us paint it. Returned to the bow. They worked their butts off on it."
Okay, that's that's Mr. Hit, and of course, may he rest in peace. He's passed away now. So, let's talk about April 11th, 1945.
Okay.
All right.
So because it's a wide subject.
Yeah. I guess, most everybody's familiar with it, just in overview.
Okay.
Of course, this photo, now this was actually taken by the ship's doctor. Is that correct?
Correct. This was taken by Dr. Brooks Garrett of Shreveport. And what you're seeing, the 4 destroyers out of Des Dive 95 are Kidd, Bullard, Black, and Chauncey. They're in a box formation. Chauncey would be, if you're looking at your computer screen, Chauncey would be on the top left of the screen. Bullard would be on the top right. Kidd would be on the bottom left, and Black, which is in this picture here, would be on the bottom right. And
okay, so this is actually Black.
What's
so
that?
This is actually Black that we're seeing behind the plane there.
Correct.
Okay.
They got attacked at noon. No, I'm sorry. Let me back up. They got attacked at dawn. They got attacked mid-morning. They got attacked at noon. And then the 4th attack, they beat all those off. A couple of them with Combat Air Patrol's help. And then at 1:55 in the afternoon, they had a plane come in and attack the formation from the north, coming northwest to southeast and crossing in front of Chauncey, headed toward Bullard. And Kidd and Chauncey both pivoted their guns to take him under fire. And Chauncey said, "I've got the ball." And so Kidd waved off, which was fortunate because the gun director, there's 2 little contacts, silver contacts, that if you're using that thing a lot and it heats up, those contacts will melt. And if they melt and flow and contact each other, it creates a continuous circuit, and the gun director runs away in train until it hits its stoppers. And that's what happened to Kidd. The gun director ran away in train to port, taking it all the way around to where it's almost pointed directly at the mast, and taking the guns with it, the 5-inch guns. So Chauncey took the plane under fire, and our main signalman, he wasn't a chief, but he was the senior most signalman on the bridge, Bill Gath, told us years later, he said it was the most perfect bit of gunnery I've ever seen. Those 5-inch guns would blow a plane apart. It'd knock a wing off, knock the tail off, knock the front end off. He said this one, and usually the gun is moving, jerking, backing up a little bit, moving, elevating up, coming down. There's constant adjustments as the ship is moving. He said in this case, Chauncey's guns came and just smoothly moved over, elevating, bam. And he said they center punched that plane, and you didn't see any debris coming off because it went up in a ball of flame. It was the most perfect shot ever. So while that's going on, Kidd's gun directors run away in train. They've taken it offline, and they're manually cranking it back around to get it toward center line. The guns have not been released in local control because the ships are so close. The gunnery officer didn't want any accidental friendly fire. And so while that's going on the outside of Black, on the other side of the formation, 2 planes are dogfighting. I think it's an American and a Japanese. It turns out it's 2 Japanese pretending to fight to get close in to the Black. One of them dives down toward the ship, and the ship takes it under fire. And while that one's being splashed, the other one comes into the aft starboard quarter and has them dead to rights, but at the last second leapfrogs over the top and puts himself between Black and Kidd, and comes in, and they're firing with 20s, they're firing with 40s, but they're holding fire on the 5s so they don't do major damage to each other. And he gets through and punches into the forward fire room of the Kidd, which Mr. Hitt was talking about. Killed 38 men and wounded 55.
Yeah, sad day. Sad day. And I guess that's something. That's a question that'll never be answered, obviously, because the pilot was killed too. But why pull up on one and then go for the other? But
they had
sometimes things just happen.
They had a theory that that perhaps he was trying to drop a bomb on Black and then go and kamikaze Kidd, and the bomb just got hung up. There's nothing that we'll ever find that will prove it, because the plane just disintegrated, and of course the bomb broke loose and punched through the ship and out the other side and detonated outside the ship. One of the sailors from the Chauncey on the fantail in front said he was looking back when the plane hit, and he thought it was the engine. He was telling our ship soup, Tim Rizzuto, I saw the engine of the plane come out the port side of the ship, and then there was an explosion. And he's like, no, what you would have seen is the bomb coming out. And they talked it over, and he's like, oh my God, I saw the bomb. So yeah, there's no way
my uncle,
if that theory was all right or not.
Yeah, my uncle was on the Chauncey, as we talked about before, and I remember him saying that just the sound of it, was especially when the alarm, I guess the horns start going off, and he says it just sounded tragic, and so I know he said everyone and Mr. Forsberg said the same thing, said it's just everyone on the Chauncey was sad because they all knew each other. There were 4 ships that were together all the time, so he said, Mr. Forsberg said that by the way, Leslie Forsberg is Dye River Tin Can Sailor. It's a whole series of videos. So anyway, he said that those guys were our friends. We might as well have been on the same ship. So anyway, but just tragic day.
And what you're saying about, I mean, they all partied together when they got Liberty. They all went out together. You can see that in the years after the war, because the Kidd crew started a reunion. The ones that got cut loose in 45, they had a reunion in 46, like the very next year. The ship was still in service till December of 46. The guys that have already been cut loose and sent home, they're at home and they're getting together and having a reunion. And eventually that reunion kept going. And within just a handful of years, Black joined them with the reunion. And then over time, the whole squadron of 9 ships, Desron 48, they were all meeting together.
Yeah.
And of course, you have politics in groups like that. So, some of the World War II crew from New England, they would have their own individual reunion, but anybody that was part of the squadron was welcome. Even when some of the ships were sold to foreign service, those foreign service crew members of those ships were welcome to come. So that's tight. They had reunions up until, I want to say 2010 or 2011, something like that, before they finally called it quits. So that's lifelong friendships that they developed right there in service with each other.
Right. Now, I think you mentioned before, obviously any of those guys that would be left, they would be over 100. How many of the World War II veterans, just as far as the Kidd, would you say are left now?
I only personally know of 2. One's in Florida, and one is there with you in North Carolina. and they are both
Okay.
101.
Okay. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, my mother just turned 98, and the reason I bring that up is because it's something, I don't know, it's just something different about that generation. You
Yeah.
know, those people, they're on another level. You know, they all came out of the Depression, and you know, they understood what it meant to be poor, and they understood what it meant to work hard. And I think that's why they didn't have a problem with coming together like they needed to do. You know, they had a different ethic. And I'm not saying that everybody that's around, I'm not one of these guys that says that everybody that's around today is bad. You know, I'm just saying that generation, they were just on a different level, man.
They're a different breed. They absolutely
Oh
were.
yeah.
And I've read a couple of books. One of them hypothesized, he said, if you look back through history to some real cataclysmic events that a society, engages in and works through, you go a little bit further back and you see that something occurred that somehow prepared that they went through that somehow prepared that generation for this cataclysmic event. And he said World War II is a perfect example. We call them the greatest generation. He said those people were forged by the Great Depression. He said if that
Yeah.
Great Depression hadn't occurred, they might not have risen to the challenge in the same way that they did. So
Yeah. And I know you're going to think this is crazy, but it's why I'm fat now. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why, because my mom came out of the Depression, and what did they teach? What did they learn from the Depression? You don't waste food.
yep.
So for years, I couldn't get up from the table, and don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming my mom for me being fat. You know, no, that's totally my fault. You know, but I'm just making a joke there. But
Sure.
yeah, it took me years to be able to leave food on the plate, because I was raised, you don't waste food, you know?
No,
So
100%.
yeah.
Hank and Ben in the chat can tell you. I was a late baby. My dad was 44 and my mom was 40 when they adopted me.
Mhm.
And they were Depression era children. My dad desperately wanted to serve in World War II. And if the folks in the chat have watched the Marvel movies, have watched the first Captain America film, Steve Rogers is running from recruiting station to recruiting station and getting turned down every time.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
literally was my dad because he had flat feet. So he was a 4F.
Right.
And he went all over Rapides Parish and Vernon Parish and a little bit in Allen Parish, I think, just trying to find a recruiting center that could could take him. And at one point he thought he was in. He got through the first whatever batch of tests and everything, and then turns out one of the doctors that had marked him out at one of the other recruiting centers was at this one that particular day. And he comes in with his folder and everything, and he looks at it and he's like, NesSmith. And he looks at him, he's like, this guy isn't supposed to be here. He's a 4F, he's got flat feet. And out he
Oh
went.
man.
So
Oh
he
man.
served in his own way back home at Camp Claiborne. He and his two sisters ran the post exchange. But same thing you're saying. If I didn't, man, there was some food that I just didn't like, but I
Yeah.
had to eat that crap because mom made it. And both she and dad grew up in the Depression. And, I'm coming of age in the 80s, right? I'm in high school,
No.
middle school. And the famine in Ethiopia is going on. And I heard endlessly, you eat that food. There's a kid in Africa that doesn't have enough to eat. And I'm like,
Yeah.
let's box
Exactly.
it up. And oh man, I got into so much trouble. But yeah, being raised by Depression era parents, you don't squander money, you don't waste food, and you appreciate what you get, or else.
That's right.
So,
That's right. That's right.
but they
Because,
taught me well.
yeah. Yeah, because in their minds, tomorrow you might not have it. Tomorrow it may not be here,
Exactly.
And I think, I mean, I thank God that we are prosperous in this country, but I think there's something lacking because we don't understand what it is to go without, you know.
That's a fair
And
point.
yeah, so you know, we've never had to go without, and so there's no fear of it. But you know, I think we have a healthy appreciation. I think it makes us appreciate what we have more, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I've babbled on enough, man. I just want to tell you, Tim, thank you so much for coming on and doing this, man.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime I get to talk history and talk about the kid and talk about people like Garrett Lynch and our volunteers and
Yeah.
people who help us, I'm happy to do it. I'm still amazed at this point that people come into the chat and sit here for how long have we been doing this now? It's an hour and a half almost,
Yeah,
and sit
something
here
like
and
that.
listen to me blather on. You know, so
Yeah, it's
I appreciate
encouraging.
all of you guys.
Yeah, it's encouraging to me because I didn't realize that there were this many people that enjoyed this stuff like I do, and so
Yeah.
I'm
How many do
glad
we have in the chat right
we
now?
did that. Say what?
How many do we have in the chat right now? I can't see it.
Okay, guys. Once again, my first time out doing this, so how can you tell? How do you tell?
I don't know. I thought
I
I
don't
saw
either.
Connor. Museum
It's a
ship still in
few.
the chat. Connor, tell us how this works.
Yeah, how can you tell how many's in the chat?
32
You can tell us.
in the chat. Okay. Thank you, Skip.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, you can tell it's the old guy doing this. So, not you, Tim. Me.
Well, hey, you know, I think we'll talk about it offline, but I may be the same age as you. I don't know.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Ben,
listen,
don't talk
man.
about how old I am. Hank, you shut up too.
Listen, thank you to everybody for coming on. Thank you for everybody that's been watching. I'm a nobody. I'm just an old guy that loves history. So, and thank you, Tim, for being gracious enough to do this interview, man. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate it. I really appreciate
Always
it.
enjoy collaborating.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
We should do it again sometime.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Listen, do you have anything else before we go? Anything else you want to bring up?
On a kid channel, you're only as old as you feel. That's true. Anything I have? Well, just for everybody out there that is supporting the kid, like Skip and the others who've made the donations. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Appreciate the support. Like, share, subscribe. We've got a Patreon going now, and you can get special behind the scenes stuff. And awesome. We are still fundraising. We don't want to leave anything undone. We want to make KIDD better than the bare minimum. You're probably sick of hearing that catchphrase, but I'm gonna harp on it forever. So thank you for the support. If you can get other people to support us, even better. We love that. And just stay tuned. We will be a little slow on content on our YouTube channel until we get our new folks up to speed and running. But we appreciate all of you. And I would say check out Sam's channel and take a look at that. He's got some interviews, first-person interviews from crew members of Chauncey. Is that right?
Yes. Actually, what I have is the first 5 videos are Diary of a Tin Can Sailor, and a Mr. Phil Forsberg was gracious enough to let me read his father's diary, Leslie Irving Forsberg, who was one of the sonar men on the Chauncey. And so it's a diary from February of 45 through the end of the war. And that's kind of what kicked it off. Actually, what got me into it, I had started writing a book about my uncle's time on the Chauncey, and he was Seaman First Class Richard Allen Kidd. And in doing that, obviously I started doing research, and then I found all this stuff, and I just fell in love with these ships and these sailors. I mean, they're just really, really cool guys. And but that's what started the channel, though. Was I did Mr. Forsberg's diary, and then I decided to, well, I'll profile all the ships in Destroyer Division 96, then, and now I've done that, and so
Now you
what the
need
heck?
to go to 48.
Yeah. Well,
do the rest of the squadron, man.
yeah. Well, hey, there were 175. Maybe I've got enough to keep me going until retirement. So
There you go.
So yeah, there's plenty of Fletchers out there, and so I enjoy doing it, and I basically I get the war diaries out, or sometimes they'll have a war history available for the ship, and I'll read that. I try to find as many sources as I can, and I try to when I can, if I can get a diary, I like to. This is one of the few times you'll actually see my face, because I like to just, focus on those guys, and I put those guys up, and I read it as if, I were reading, as if they were reading it.
Right.
I don't interject a lot of me, because I want it to be about them and their memories, and of course what's in the official war diary, if that makes any sense,
Oh no, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
but the name of the channel is Fletcher Destroyer Ships.
Fletcher Destroyer Ships. Highly recommend it, folks. Check it out.
Okay.
Anna is asking if you can do anything from home. Anna, All American Travels has my work email, and James, if you would hook her up with that email, and let's correspond, because that's one of the things. I was having this conversation on Facebook in museum ships a while back with somebody. He's like, well, he was talking about the Silver Sides, and he said, well, I live 2 hours away. I can't really help. And I pointed out, I said, you know what? The guy that discovered the footnote in the blueprints about our fantail being made out of galvanized metal, we'd looked at those blueprints forever, and others had looked at it and never caught that. And that explained why we'd had so much corrosion. And he lives in Pennsylvania. And I have a nice lady named Heather who, before we stopped, I was working on restoring the life rafts with new rope, line. Sorry for the sailors out there. New line, new canvas straps. Sanding down, painting the wood, sanding down and painting the ring, and getting them all restored and looking nice. And we stopped because, okay, we got the money for dry dock. We got to start getting the ship ready. But Heather was sitting in Houston sewing. She came over and visited for a couple of days and saw how I wanted the canvas straps sewn to where they kind of loop over themselves and make a hoop on each end, and then I can just run them around the ring and tie them together. And once she saw how I wanted it done, she went home and she started sewing straps in Houston, and then mailing them to me when they were done. So lots of different people help from around the country. So Anna, definitely, I would like to take you up on that. We'll see what we can hook you up with. And awesome. Skip's asking if there's a link for your channel, Sam.
Yeah, it's Fletcher Destroyer Ships. I wouldn't know how to show a link from here, but yeah, the name of the channel, like I said, it's Fletcher Destroyer Ships. It's flipped around instead of Fletcher class destroyers. I guess I just wanted to be different.
Yeah. I tell you what, Skip, as soon as we wrap this up, I will go into the description for the live stream on the kids channel, and I will put a link for Sam's channel.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Maybe next time I'll know a little bit more about this program. So
everybody learns it. I mean, I've been doing it 4 years, and I'm still learning stuff. Miss Molly was teaching me, and she had been doing it for 1 year. So everybody learns, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate your time. I appreciate everyone watching tonight. And I enjoyed it, man. I enjoyed it. I had fun.
It's fun to talk history.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, man. at least I'm not boring my wife with it. So
My wife is enjoying me being in here when she's in the living room. Yeah, same
We-
thing in my house, dude.
yeah. But anyway, thank you so much, and I guess we'll call it a night, guys.
All right.
Thank
Thank you,
everybody
guys.
for coming out. Take care.
Bye-bye.